I've always been captivated by American road trips. There's something incredibly romantic and liberating about driving down those seemingly endless roads, taking in the diverse landscapes of this country. But on that particular journey along the fabled Route 66, the romance soon evaporated, replaced by an unforgettable horror. That night, I was behind the wheel of my classic convertible heading west. The sun had long since dipped below the horizon, and darkness had descended upon the vast cornfields flanking the road. I'd been driving non-stop since dawn, and a wave of drowsiness began to wash over me. It was then, amidst the inky blackness, that I spotted a faint glimmer of light ahead. A small, isolated rest stop emerged like an oasis in the boundless night. Miller's Stop, the weathered wooden sign read in faded, peeling paint. The rest stop looked even more dilapidated than I'd imagined, consisting of only a tiny diner and a ramshackle listing gas station. But at that point, exhaustion and drowsiness left me with no choice. I pulled in, deciding to stop and rest for a while, despite a vague sense of unease prickling at my senses. Stepping into the diner, a blast of chilling, oppressive air hit me, sending shivers down my spine. The place was eerily deserted, devoid of any sound. Only an elderly man with a gaunt face stood behind the counter, slowly, unsettlingly polishing glasses. The weak, flickering yellow light cast grotesque, distorted shadows from his lean face onto the walls, like ghostly figures lurking in the gloom. "Good evening," I managed to say, breaking the heavy silence. The man looked up, slowly turning towards me. His eyes were listless, vacant, as if looking right through me, into some undefined space beyond. "What can I get for you?" His voice rasped, thin and reedy, like the whisper of a cold wind. I ordered a hot coffee and a sandwich. While waiting, I tried to scan the diner, hoping to dispel the growing unease. Old, paint-chipped wooden tables and chairs, dusty desert landscape paintings hanging askew on the walls, and an antique grandfather clock ticking rhythmically in the corner. Everything in the diner exuded an air of age and decay, as if time itself had ceased to flow in this place long ago. The coffee and sandwich arrived quickly. I took a sip of the coffee, a bitter, metallic tang spreading through my mouth, accompanied by a faintly unpleasant chemical taste. The sandwich was dry and cold, each bite feeling like chewing cardboard. But at that point, I had no appetite for food or drink. The unease within me grew, like an invisible monster gnawing at my mind. Suddenly, the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock ceased. Startled, I glanced towards the corner. The clock stood motionless, but the second hand no longer ticked forward. Instead, something strange and chilling occurred. The second hand began to move counterclockwise, slowly, incrementally, as if time itself was reversing. Immediately after, the lights in the diner flickered violently, wavering like candles in a draft, before plunging into darkness. The diner was swallowed by pitch blackness as thick as ink, with only the faint, spectral light from the street lamp filtering through the window, sketching eerie shapes on the floor. The man behind the counter remained frozen like a statue, without a sound or a movement. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice cracking with fear. There was no reply. I called out louder, almost shouting, still no response. A deathly, terrifying silence enveloped me, like a thick velvet curtain suffocating all senses. I backed slowly towards the door, my heart pounding as if trying to escape my chest, desperate to flee this unholy diner immediately. But as I reached for the door handle, a cold, rigid hand suddenly clamped down on my shoulder. An icy chill radiated from my shoulder down my spine, making me shudder to my very core. I spun around, trying to suppress the rising terror. Inches from my face was the face of the man from behind the counter. But his face had completely transformed, no longer bearing any human semblance. His skin was pallid, ashen, bloated as if about to burst. His features were distorted and fierce, fangs elongated, sharp as wolf's teeth. And his eyes were bloodshot, burning with furious rage, staring intently at me, drilling deep into my soul as if trying to drain my spirit from within. I felt an invisible force pulling me in, my mind reeling, dizzy, as if I was being sucked into those bloodshot eyes, dragged into a dark, bottomless abyss. "You cannot leave," he whispered, his voice no longer human, but like the hiss of a venomous snake, both chilling and hypnotic. "You have come here, you belong here. You must stay with us, forever." I screamed in terror, the sound tearing through the still night air. Thrashing wildly, I yanked my shoulder free from his icy grip, and bolted out of the diner like a wounded animal, running blindly towards my convertible, leaving everything behind, leaving Miller's Stop and the indescribable horror behind me. Leaping into the car, I twisted the ignition key, slamming my foot on the accelerator. The car roared to life, speeding away into the pitch-black night, leaving behind the weak yellow light of the rest stop, leaving behind the demonic figure and his horrifying curse. I drove all night, not daring to stop for even a moment, even a second. Only when dawn broke, when the rosy sunrise chased away the darkness, did I finally dare to breathe a sigh of relief, pulling over to the side of the road and collapsing onto the steering wheel, weeping uncontrollably like a child. But the image of Miller's Stop, the demonic face of the man, his bloodshot eyes like the pits of hell, and his chilling whisper still haunt me to this day. I know that night, I brushed against an evil supernatural force, a terrifying dark secret hidden within the desolate rest stops along Route 66. And I carry that horror with me like a scar that will never heal for the rest of my life. I'm an investigative journalist specializing in supernatural phenomena. When I heard the rumors surrounding an abandoned rest stop on a small island off the coast of Scotland, I decided to travel there to uncover the truth. Mist Isle, as the locals called it, even the name sounded ominous. As the boat docked, I found myself facing a dilapidated, desolate rest stop. Moss-covered stone walls, rotting wooden doors, and a collapsed tile roof. Surrounding the rest stop was a barren landscape, only gray rocks and stunted bushes. I stepped inside the rest stop. The air was damp, cold, and reeked of mildew. The interior was cluttered with discarded items, covered in dust and grime. A wooden table with a broken leg, a tattered armchair, and a rusty lantern. Everything evoked a sense of desolation and decay. I began my investigation. I searched for clues in every nook and cranny of the rest stop. In a corner of a room, I found an old diary, its cover worn and torn, its pages yellowed with age. I opened the diary and began to read the scrawled handwriting. The diary told the story of a family who had lived at this rest stop in the 19th century. They were the caretakers of the rest stop, welcoming travelers and sailors who visited the island. But one night, a terrible disaster struck. A massive storm descended upon the island, washing everything away. The caretaker family vanished mysteriously, never to be seen again. From then on, the rest stop was abandoned. Local residents whispered that the souls of the ill-fated family still lingered around the island, haunting the rest stop and anyone who dared to venture near. As I was reading the diary, I suddenly heard heavy footsteps echoing from the hallway. I startled, looking up, my heart pounding in my chest. The footsteps grew louder, as if someone was approaching. I stood up, picked up my flashlight, and cautiously stepped out of the room. The hallway was pitch black, only the weak beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. I walked down the hallway, my own footsteps echoing in the silence. Suddenly, I saw a shadowy figure dart quickly across the end of the hallway. I hurriedly shone my flashlight in that direction but saw no one, only a slightly ajar wooden door and a cold draft wafting from within. I approached the door and gently pushed it open. The door revealed a large room as black as ink. The smell of mildew assaulted my nostrils. I shone my flashlight inside and was horrified to realize I was standing in a small chapel. In the center of the chapel, on an old altar, rested a decaying wooden crucifix. And at the foot of the crucifix, a human skeleton lay huddled in a heap. The skeleton was bleached white, its joints disarticulated. A gruesome sight that sent a chill down my spine. Just then, I heard a whispering murmur in my ear. "You shouldn't be here. You don't belong here." The voice sounded like the whistling of wind, both distant and close at the same time. I spun around in terror, but there was no one around. Only darkness and a terrifying silence enveloped me. I knew I had awakened resentful spirits, dark secrets hidden within the rest stop on this mist-shrouded island, and I had to leave quickly before it was too late. It happened 10 years ago. 10 years, yet every time night falls, that giggling laughter still echoes in my dreams. Children's laughter, so pure it was chilling, pulls me back to the gloomy bamboo forest, back to that accursed rest stop. 10 years, and I still can't escape the haunting memory of that terrifying night. I came to Japan in the spring of that year as an exchange student. I was captivated by Japanese folklore, especially the traditional tales and spiritual beliefs. When a local friend told me about the gloomy bamboo forest and the ancient rest stop nestled deep within it, an irresistible curiosity compelled me to seek it out and explore. The gloomy bamboo forest. "Don't you dare go there," my friend warned, his voice laced with fear. "They say that forest is haunted. The spirits of those who died unjustly still linger there. That rest stop, it's even more terrifying. They say anyone who sets foot inside never makes it out alive." His warning, far from deterring me, only fueled my intrigue. I was someone who didn't believe in ghosts and demons, considering them mere tall tales and fabrications. I wanted to see for myself, to know the truth. One afternoon, I set out alone to find the bamboo forest. The road became increasingly deserted and desolate, with endless stretches of vibrant green rice paddies extending to the horizon on either side. Upon reaching the edge of the forest, I immediately sensed a distinct change. The air grew colder, and the sunlight seemed to be completely absorbed by the woods, leaving only a dim, oppressive shade. Stepping into the bamboo forest felt like entering another world. Thousands of towering bamboo stalks stretched straight towards the sky, their vibrant green bodies and rustling leaves creating a whispering, mysterious sound in the breeze. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns of light on the ground, creating a scene that was both beautiful and eerie. Deeper into the forest, I began to feel uneasy. The silence was disturbingly profound, and even the chirping of birds sounded isolated and lonely. I had the unsettling feeling of being watched from behind those endless rows of green bamboo. Finally, after walking for quite some time, I saw the rest stop appear before me. It was a small, old wooden house, nestled amidst the dense green bamboo. The house appeared abandoned and dilapidated, yet it retained a certain ancient, somber beauty. The moss-covered roof, the weathered wooden walls, the slightly ajar, creaking wooden door, everything exuded an air of wildness and coldness. I approached the house, gently pushed open the wooden door and stepped inside. The air was immediately thick with darkness, dampness, and the pungent smell of decaying wood. Light filtered through cracks in the walls, casting hazy beams onto the dusty floor. The interior was covered in dust and cobwebs hung everywhere. A low tea table, an old tatami mat, and a broken ceramic vase. Everything evoked a sense of nostalgia and solitude. I began to explore the house, searching for traces of those who had once lived there. In a corner of the room, I found a small locked wooden box. Intrigued, I used the small knife I carried to carefully pry open the lock and open the box. Inside, a traditional Japanese doll lay still. The doll was made of porcelain, with a pale white face and piercing black eyes that stared directly at me. Long, black hair cascaded down its shoulders, and it wore a vibrant red kimono. The doll was beautiful and intricately crafted, but for some reason looking at it sent a shiver down my spine. Especially its eyes. Those eyes seemed to bore into my very soul, as if trying to draw my spirit inside. I picked up the doll and suddenly felt a cold draft run down my back. It felt as if someone was watching me, observing me. I quickly spun around, but all around was only darkness and a terrifying silence. I put the doll down, trying to calm myself. It's just a doll, I told myself. I'm just imagining things. But the more I tried to reassure myself, the more uneasy I felt. My mind was racing, disoriented. The space around me seemed to be shifting, becoming distorted and bizarre. The bamboo trees outside appeared to be moving, their sharp leaves reaching towards the wooden house. Then I heard the sound of children's giggling laughter echoing from within the bamboo forest. The laughter was clear and innocent, yet it carried a chilling, unsettling feeling. I knew I wasn't alone in this bamboo forest. There were unseen forces, ghostly spirits lurking in the darkness, watching me, following me. I wanted to leave the wooden house immediately to escape this terrifying bamboo forest. But as I turned around, I was horrified to see that the entrance door had vanished. In its place was a solid wooden wall without a single crack. I tried to find another way out, but all the windows, all the openings were sealed shut. I was trapped inside this wooden house, in this haunted bamboo forest, with no escape. Fear overwhelmed me, squeezing my heart. I felt like I was trapped in a time loop, a ghostly space where past and present merged. I couldn't distinguish between reality and illusion. I looked down at the Japanese doll on the table, and once again was horrified to see its eyes moving. The doll's black eyes were staring directly at me, filled with resentment and hatred. And this time, I not only felt it, but I also heard a whispered voice in my head. "You have trespassed on my territory. You will pay the price." The voice echoed in my head, growing louder and more terrifying with each passing moment. I clutched my head, screaming in vain. It felt like thousands of sharp knives were piercing my brain. I collapsed onto the floor, losing consciousness. In the pitch darkness, I could still hear the giggling laughter of children, the whispering curses of the doll, and the wind whistling through the bamboo forest, all blending together to create a terrifying, haunting symphony. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I woke up, I found myself lying in the middle of the bamboo forest, outside the wooden house. The dawn was breaking, dispelling some of the gloomy darkness of the forest. The wooden door of the house was wide open, as if nothing had ever happened. I staggered to my feet, running frantically out of the bamboo forest. I ran and ran, not daring to look back. When I reached the edge of the forest, I was almost exhausted, collapsing to the ground. I had escaped the haunted bamboo forest, escaped the terrifying rest stop. But I knew that a part of my soul had been left behind there, forever unable to return. 10 years have passed, but every time night falls, that giggling laughter still echoes in my dreams, reminding me of that terrifying night at the rest stop in the bamboo forest, of the price I had to pay for my foolish curiosity. And I know, this haunting will follow me for the rest of my life.